If I was starting Wattpad in 2022, I would not make the same mistakes that I made in 2017. Hey fresties, welcome back to Wattpad Wednesdays. Why am I gesturing like that? Like, I don't know. Today we are talking all about the things that I would do differently if I was starting on Wattpad in 2022 versus when I started in 2017 and didn't really know that much about what I was doing. Now, if you've been here before, you know that technically I didn't start on Wattpad in 2017. That's just when I started my main account, but I've actually been on Wattpad since 2014, and I did write a little bit back then too, but nothing serious. I wasn't really trying to build an audience or anything, so I'm gonna just go from when I was in 2017, and I was actually trying to build something, which I built it to where it is now, and I'm very proud of it, but it could have happened faster had I not made some of the mistakes that I did. So the first thing, that was dramatic. The first thing that I would do differently if I was starting on Wattpad this year would be to study story structure more intently. And honestly, not just story structure, but character voice, character flaws, and character arcs, all that good stuff. I would make sure that my internal plot was as developed as my external plot, which was not the case in my first story, 4 of Clubs. It was severely lacking internal plot, and my character voices, I had 2 point of views in that story, Jade and Madeline, and they were pretty similar. They were very different characters, but their voices had almost no difference in their narration. If I ever edit that story thoroughly, there's a lot of work to do. Obviously, I just know more about writing now, and some of that just comes with the fact that I've written 6 books since then. Is that right? But had I done more research to begin with and done more than just plot out my story with the 3-act story structure, I think it would have been much better to begin with. The first edits that I did do to it were pretty substantial, and still it's just not at the place where I would like it to be, because I just didn't start off with that solid foundation that a story really needs to have, at least for me. So if you are a new writer who's planning to start something on Wattpad this year, if you just want to jump into it and have fun, totally valid, totally cool. But if you really want to start on like the next level of writing, I would totally recommend doing a lot of research into different plotting methods and just writing in general. There's a lot of advice out there online for writers, both on YouTube and on Wattpad itself. Really, anything that you can get your hands on to help you improve as a writer is going to help you have the upper hand on Wattpad. The second thing that I would do differently if I was starting to write on Wattpad in 2022 would to be focus more on the writing than the growth. I don't think it's uncommon for people on Wattpad to get a little caught up in the numbers sometimes. I know that I did it way a lot in the past, and I still do it sometimes. You know, oh, I wish this story would hit this milestone, or I wish I had the same amount of followers as that person. But at the end of the day, if I focus more on my writing, just let the growth happen naturally, it's a lot less stressful, and I just am reminded that I write because I love to write. I don't write so that I can say, oh look, this story got 100,000 reads. It's something a lot more important than that. Even if the story only got 10 reads, I would still write it because I just love it that much. When I was first starting out on Wattpad, I came in with the hopes that like I was gonna blow up overnight, you know, it was gonna be a sensation type of thing. I was gonna get 10,000 reads in a month. I've always been an optimist. Let's just put it that way. And this was very much one of those situations. And when it didn't happen quite that fast, you know, obviously I understood that my ideas were a little crazy, but I still let it get me a little demotivated. And there was actually a point where I wasn't seeing the growth that I wanted, and I just sort of stepped back and took a break. So if I had not put so much weight into the numbers or the interaction right away, and I had been less focused on trying to find an audience when I didn't even have a completed story yet, I think things would have gone a lot smoother for me, because I would have just focused on the writing, just completed that story, and not worried about, you know, oh, is this gonna get an audience someday? Is this gonna get reads someday? Because if you give your story enough time and you really are active on Wattpad, an audience will come to you eventually. The snowball effect is real, in my opinion. In my experience, I think I just would have had more fun with it right off the bat if I had taken all the energy that I had spared on trying to advertise my story and find people who wanted to read it and do read for reads and all that stuff is great. But if I had just cut that in half and taken all that extra stuff and put it into the writing and the enjoyment of the writing and, you know, the discovery of the plot and the characters and really getting into that story, I think I just would have enjoyed it more. The next thing that I would do if I was starting on Wattpad in 2022 is not be a silent reader. I don't honestly have a lot of time to read on Wattpad these days, but back in 2017 I did, and but I wasn't commenting that much on the stuff that I was reading. Not only do I now know as an author just how much every single comment means, but I also know that comments that I left back in 2017, somebody could read that, think it's funny, click on my profile today in 2022, and I could get a reader from something that I said all those years ago. Obviously, that's approaching it from somewhat of a selfish perspective, and I would never recommend commenting on somebody's story just because you hope that somebody else might click on your profile and go to your profile. But if you're already reading the story and you have things that you want to say, then obviously there's no downside to doing that. I am quite shy, I've always been quite shy, and I think that that's not an uncommon trait in readers, so commenting can be like nerve-wracking for some reason, even though it's like, I know as an author, I appreciate every single comment, and yet as a reader, I'm still like, what if they think I'm weird for commenting this? It's stupid and I should just not think that way, but I do. If I was starting on Wattpad this year and I had the time to be more of an active reader, then I would definitely try to get over that and just comment as much as I wanted, say what I wanted, and just, yeah. And last but not least, I actually think it's one of the more important things that I would do differently. If I was starting on Wattpad this year, unlike in 2017, I would be proud of my hobby. I started taking my writing seriously in 2017 on Wattpad, and I didn't tell anybody about it until late 2019, I think, because for some reason I was embarrassed about it. I think that anybody who has a creative hobby can definitely understand this. If you have a piece of art, there's a part of you that's really proud of it, but there's also that part of you that's like, this is not good enough. Like, I don't want anybody to see this. Especially not people that you know for some reason, just because it's like, what are they gonna think about it? I had this sort of lingering belief in my head, I guess from high school and years before, that my writing hobby was sort of like a cringy thing, like something that I should be embarrassed about. And it wasn't until a few years in where I finally got up the confidence to tell people about it. And honestly, it hasn't been until recently that I've actually felt confident about it. And I will say that a lot of that is because of the audience that I have gathered on Wattpad. The comments that I've gotten, the support that they've shown me, it just makes me feel like I am actually capable of being a writer. Obviously, there are always going to be people who won't like it, but I have a decent amount of people who do like it, so I should be proud of that. I wish that it didn't take me so long, and I wish that it didn't take that much for me to get to the place where I was proud of it in the first place. If I was joining now, I would try to just own it and just be proud of it and just be like, yes, I'm a writer, I write, I'm not embarrassed about it, it's cool. Because at the end of the day, it is cool. I think any hobby is cool. Well, let's be careful with me saying any hobby. Somebody could say that killing people is a hobby. That's not cool. Although, I mean, if they're bad people, okay, this is getting off track. Those are all the things that I would do differently, or at least try to do differently, if I was starting fresh on Wattpad in 2022. Hopefully, if you are starting your Wattpad journey this year, or if you've already been on Wattpad and you're just looking for a little bit of a change in your attitude or the things that you're doing, hopefully this video was helpful. If you didn't see last week's video, I talked all about why you should start writing on Wattpad in 2022. Feel free to check that out if you want to see all my reasons why I think it's a great idea to start sharing your work on Wattpad this year. If this video was helpful, feel free to drop a like, a comment, subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next Wattpad Wednesday. For any of you fresties out there who have been looking forward to the series all about how I plot and plan and prep and edit and draft my stories for Wattpad, that was sort of out of order, but you get the picture. That is going to be all through February and then the first week of March. So that is a 5-part series and it's coming. So be prepared. Anyway, that's all I have for you today, so thank you very much for watching. I really need to come up with an outro. This isn't cutting it.